if you want to know how to choose a great content site niche, then stick around. I'm going to reveal how 6 content site pros do it. So we've just finished month 1 of our Entrepreneur Ride Along series, which if you don't know, it's where we're following 6 SEO and content site professionals month by month as they essentially build a site from scratch. And now they're sharing their step-by-step actions that went into building it along the journey from pretty much ground zero to their income or their exit goals. Some of the goals are making $1,000 per month, some are making $10,000 per month, and some is the goal of exiting the business for $400,000 to even $500,000. These are owners of content site portfolios that currently make around 5 to 6 figures per month. So they've done this before, and they're doing it again and showing you the process along the way. In this first month, they start us off by talking about how they've researched and selected their niche, which for most people is the starting point and the reason why people get stuck to begin with. So you can read or watch the screen share directly on the Entrepreneur Ride Along site, which I'll link below, but I'm gonna summarize what I thought were some valuable insights on how to select a niche that you could use immediately to get started with your content site. Starting off with Alton. Alton is building a website around STEM toys, so that's science, technology, engineering, and math. So toys for that, and his goal is to build the website to flip it in 1 year for around $120,000. Now, in order to do that, the earnings need to be at least $3,000 per month in net profit, and to make this money or to monetize the site, he's going to do that through affiliate sales and display advertising. So in his case, there are 3 areas that he considers when validating a niche. First is monetization. So you want to make sure that there are affiliates and ad revenue opportunities. The second is traffic. You want to make sure that there's sufficient traffic, and this means that people are actually searching for the topic or for the niche, and that out of the things that people are searching for, it's not overly saturated. Third is the competition. So you want to know if there are competitors that either have done what you're trying to do, or are there competitors that are easy enough to knock off at the level that you would be starting at or that you'd be trying to get to. So this is a pretty basic trifecta in niche selection, but it's good to know or good to see that even the higher level pros use still pretty basic research standards to determine how to move forward. And yes, of course, there are ways to get more objective with the numbers, but at a broad level, this is kind of what you'll be focusing on to determine if a niche is good for you to get into to begin with. Ultimately, it would come down to traffic volume or market size. It would come down to the competition in that space, and that the competition is proving that you are able to monetize through the strategy that you'd be moving forward with. All right, next is James. So James is building a site in the travel niche with the goal of making $100,000 per year through lead generation, affiliate sales, and display advertising. And he wants to exit with a valuation of $250,000 to $350,000. So here's what he has to say about how he researches his niche. His advice is, when picking the niche, I like to totally map it out. And what I do is I put all the competitors into one massive sheet, and then I put their DR or their domain rating, and then traffic divided by that DR to give me this little score so I know how well the websites are doing compared to their DR. If a website has a DR of like 60, but we've only got 1,000 traffic a month or less, then I know it's going to be a spammy website or something's wrong. So compared to Alton's section, I highlighted this section to demonstrate how research starts to get more into the numbers. First, we started with something that was just like looking at a more broad approach or maybe a more subjective approach. And this gets more into the details of how the pros are looking at numbers. And it's helpful also to hear which primary metrics a professional actually focuses on, which in this case is traffic compared to the website's domain rating. And it makes sense to look at domain rating, as domain rating, well, theoretically, the more quickly you as the website owner would be able to match that domain rating. With that domain rating, you could expect a similar level of traffic. And it's also good to know how to use this to identify spammy websites that aren't worth including in your research. All right, next let's talk about Logan. So Logan has worked in the SEO space for about 6 years, following a career in animal welfare, and he's building a site in the animal niche with the goal of making $10,000 per month in net profit and a target exit of $400,000 to $500,000. So here's what he says about how he selects his niches. The biggest factor that I look for is really just a niche that can be broad. I want to be able to add 1,000 articles without too much of a struggle. And that doesn't mean I'm going to take every site to 1,000 articles or that I have to, but just being able to see those options and being able to reasonably say we could get there without too much of a struggle tells me that it's a big enough niche where I have some room to maneuver. So I chose this section of this blog to highlight because it shows that the pros have really these different personal research styles, right? From Alton to James, now to Logan. And I also wanted to highlight this part about having a big enough niche that gives you room to maneuver. I think there's a lot of pressure on people doing this for the first time, especially building content sites for the first time, to get the niche exactly right. And I bet this is a big reason why many don't get started. It can be daunting to think that you'll put years of work into the wrong niche. But if you go with this method, you can choose something that's broad enough that allows you to experiment with pieces of content, see what gains more traction than others, and niche down into that direction if it makes sense to do so. Some people like going with super specific niches to get traffic quickly. In this case, I think it takes the pressure off of getting your niche right on the money from the start. All right, next let's talk about Thiago. So Thiago is currently based in Bali and he runs a product growth agency that provides UX design and SEO services. And he's building a site in the finance and banking industry with the goal of achieving profitability in 18 months and building this up to $100,000 annually. In his case, he's building a site based in Portugal, not in the US. And I thought this was unique and I wanted to highlight this. And here's his take on foreign content sites or English-based sites that target audiences in other countries. He says, if I want to compete with English-based content sites in Portugal or Indonesia, or any other country that is non-native English speaking, there's a huge opportunity because often these companies or the people that own the content sites, they don't have access to good writers. All right, so in the blog itself, he gets more into the detail about why he's choosing to focus on a content site in the Portuguese market. But to summarize, he's getting into a space with a high volume of traffic, you know, the finance and the banking industry, but it's in a part of the world where it's easier to compete for that high volume of traffic. And this exists not just in this niche, but a lot of niches, and this is a huge opportunity for those getting into content sites. And it's a reason why we've actually begun accepting and started seeing purchases of foreign content sites on the Empire Flippers marketplace. In fact, I'll leave a podcast episode we recently recorded with someone who is focused on creating foreign content sites where he explains the opportunity that exists in further detail and how people can build these kinds of sites. All right, next is Nell. Nell is from Indonesia and he originally came from an e-commerce background, but then switched over to SEO, starting with a gardening blog that grew to about 10,000 visitors per month within the first 10 months. And now he's building a site in the health food niche, and his goal is to make $300 per month with a target exit of $10,000. So I like that because we have people from really different goals trying to build their site to different levels and exit at different levels as well. So here's an interesting tip from his blog post about how he quickly determines if a niche he's researching is in that kind of sweet spot of being large enough when it comes to search volume to be worth getting into, but also not overly broad to where it's too competitive. So he says, in order to determine if a niche I'm researching is large enough, I perform a side-by-side comparison on Google Trends with my target niche and the search term orchid care. Now, if Google shows that the search volume for your niche is below that of orchid care, your niche is too small and you need at least the same or greater search volume compared to that orchid care search term. And you also don't want it to be too far above orchid care, as that might imply that your niche is too broad. So this one I actually haven't heard of, and in this case it's just so subjective. It's not based in really in numbers, but if you find that you're getting bogged down by the numbers and you want to do some quick comparisons to validate a niche to get up and running, then here's a method that some pros use. And there is still likely going to be, of course, some more objective research done, but this could be a way of just distilling your research if you have a lot of niches that you're looking at into a smaller list and then quickly do do a deeper dive on that shortlist. All right, next is Umar. Umar is an SEO consultant and owner of a link building agency called growthwinner.com, and he's building a site in the audio production space. And his goal is to build the site up to making $1,000 per month and to sell that business for $30,000 to $40,000. So here's one of many methods that Umar references in his blog post that he uses to brainstorm a list of potential niches to get into. So he said, the first method I use to find niches is by looking through Amazon's best sellers category. You can get product ideas from here and the idea for your niche. Ultimately, in my opinion, Amazon has the best navigation in the world when it comes to products. So let's suppose we're going into kitchen and dining as a niche. So we can see all the products here, and if we go further down into cookware, we can see the types of cookware as well. So just spend time exploring the Amazon bestseller categories to find the products that you can write content about. And one thing to mention is you mostly will find cheap products here just because there are more people purchasing them, but there's no harm in using this as a starting point to explore categories and find which one suits your interests well. You may have heard of this method if you're more experienced in creating content sites, but if you're new to this and you have no idea where to start for your niche research, this is a way to reverse engineer this and look at where people are selling well under a functioning affiliate program like Amazon Associates. Amazon Associates is a huge program and sees a large volume of sales, so when you see the best sellers that's coming from Amazon Associates, you know that it's a large sample size. And I like the distinction that he made at the end of this point, that you might find a lot of cheap products that aren't actually worth writing about on a content site, but you can use these as your starting point to look into the broader niche and see if there are higher priced items that would be more worth your time. Now, if this niche research stuff still bogs you down, but you do want to get into the content site space, you can check out our marketplace of content sites. This will allow you to skip the research, buy something that's already proven to work and meets our level of quality and has done all the groundwork up front. And if you want to know areas where online businesses have crashed after they've achieved a level of success, then click on the video here. Thanks for watching. See you next time.